So today we are going to talk about a film story. Now, whenever you hear the word story, people think that it is any narrative, but narratives come in different forms. But once we begin to talk story, then we are looking at a technical term. A story is a cause and effect relationship within a narrative, which means that a situation happens and subsequent to that situation, other events occur in response to that situation that happened originally. So a story under normal circumstances is chronological, which means that we follow the time as it happened and the subsequent things that happen. I know that some people are saying that, we've seen stories that are not presented in a chronological form. Yes, indeed, you have, but therein lies the difference between a story and a plot, which we will talk about in due course. But normally when you say a story, then it's a chronological flow of a cause and effect relationship. So what is it that makes a story different from other narratives? Well, for it to be technical and let's say briefly, we will say that a story is about a person, male or female, at times even a non-animated person, even a thing, animals. All of them can be a central character, which we often also call a protagonist. So a story is about a protagonist who has set himself or herself a goal to solve a problem that he has encountered. But in trying to solve the problem, the interest in which he needs to solve the problem goes against somebody else's interest. So that person will then stand to stop him from achieving that goal. Because once he, the protagonist, achieves the goal, that other person that we normally call the antagonist fails to achieve his or her goal as well. So there is this confrontation between the two, which leads into a struggle. And the struggle will go on until a final struggle where the two of them come to an agreement that they've accepted whatever the outcome of that struggle is. Subsequent to that, a new beginning is established for the protagonist who had sought to attain the goal. It doesn't always mean that the protagonist will achieve the goal or not, but whether he achieved the goal or not, he comes to an understanding, an agreement that this is the outcome of his or her struggles. So technically, that is a story. We will go into details about it in due course. But then narratives also come in different forms. For us to have a clear understanding of what a narrative or a story is, we may have to look at the other forms of narrative that are close to stories but are not stories. The first one is an anecdote. Anecdote is a short narrative that tries to explain the outcomes in real life. So there's a video of a man who has introduced voice control in his home.
Playing jazz.
Playing jazz.
Smoothie.
Making smoothie.
Calendar.
No meetings today. Remember, tandläkare at 9:30.
Fire off.
Fire off.
Open door.
Door open.
Sånn, så skal vi sette en til.
Ja. Open door.
Wrong voice command.
Open door.
Wrong voice command.
Open door.
Repeat that.
Open door.
I didn't understand that.
Hey, open door.
Play on the floor.
Get on the floor. Open the door.
Wrong
Open the
voice
door.
command. Error.
Hey there. With a rock. Open door. Open door. Open door. Higher.
Higher volume.
Higher.
At the end of it, you realize that it is just a narrative that is trying to explain to you some of the challenges that will come around as a result of use of artificial intelligence and also voice controls. And that does not have the intricate plot structure that a story has. Subsequent to that is poems. Poems are also narratives. In fact, they are written as well, literally. So it's a literary narrative. And the poem is determined by the number of syllables you find in every line. So you see what we call a metric, which suggests what the number of syllables in each of the lines in the poem. And so you see very often in hymns, if you open a hymn book, you see under the hymn book certain numbers written, 6, 6, 7, 8, 6, 6, which is telling you that there are 6 lines. The first line has 6 syllables. The second line has 6 syllables. The third line has 7 syllables. The fourth line has 8 syllables. The fifth line has 6 syllables. And the sixth line has 6 syllables. That's what those numbers are telling you, which means that any hymn that has the same metric can be sung with that tune that has been used for that. So that is one aspect of a poem. The other aspect of a poem is the rhyme. You realize that the sound of the last words are often made to sound similar. Example is what you see in Invictus, as we have displayed on the screen for you to read, and you realize that the last lines are made to sound the same. So these two important things is what you can see in poems. But beyond the poem, which is written, there are people who make it a point to come outside and present it. They perform it. So at that point in time, the same poem that is also a narrative becomes what we call the spoken word. And you realize that with the spoken word, apart from the metric, apart from the rhymes at the end, you also realize that there's a lot of communication in the body language of the one who is presenting it. The face, the body, the hands, they all add up to the message that the narrative is giving to you. Once again, Atukwe Okan's logarithms, as he presents it, becomes a very good example of what a spoken word is.
May the xylophones of Sundiata climb the stone temples of Monomotapa. May the phantom fronts of Mansa Kankamusa ascend the Kilimanjaro of our hearts. Ting kong 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 kong, ting kong kong, ting kong 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 kong, ting kong kong.
Then you can then transcend that poem which has gone into a spoken word into a song. Now, once we go into a song, then you realize that as it has the metric, as it has the rhyming at the end, as it has the body expression, it also has a melodic line. And it is the melodic line that makes it music. It makes it a song for you to sing. Note that all these narratives allow for a certain literary presentation and a certain relationship of story to present. But in all that, you still haven't gotten a technical story. All that is turned into a story by putting in a situation where you have a protagonist who have a goal because there's a problem, and there's an antagonist that is trying to stop him to achieve that goal. And as a result, there's a struggle which leads to a climax as a story, and then the falling action which sets up a new beginning for the central character whose story we've told. So in a nutshell, that is a story. We can now begin to go into the specific elements of storytelling one after the other.